Hi guys, and welcome to Quiet Voice podcast channel. Tonight we're stepping into a winter station in 1956 where the lamps shine through falling snow and a sleeper train waits with warm windows and patient steel. The platform smells of coal smoke, wet wool, old leather, and coffee held in paper cups by travellers who pretend they are not shivering. Ahead of you, the Adirondack mountains lie under a thickening sky. Quiet as a folded blanket, the storm is already gathering itself, because apparently a simple train ride was not dramatic enough. So, before you settle into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you are listening from and what your local time is right now. Perhaps it is late. Perhaps the room is dim. Perhaps your own window is dark. The porter lifts a gloved hand. The conductor checks his watch. Now, it's time to rest. You stand beneath the station roof as snow whispers against the iron beams. The flakes come slanting through the yellow light, not falling so much as arriving with purpose, each one joining the white edge along the platform. Your suitcase rests beside your shoe, square, dependable, and faintly scratched from other journeys. Its handle is cold under your palm. Somewhere beyond the steam, a bell gives a measured warning, and the train answers with a low breath that rolls along the cars. The sleeper is painted in deep, dignified colours, dark enough to look almost black under the storm. Narrow steps wait beside the open door. A metal handrail gathers frost so quickly it seems alive. When you place your foot on the first step, the whole car gives a tiny responsive shift, a polite reminder that this hotel has wheels, brakes, pipes, springs, and a mood of its own. Inside warmth folds around you. It is not the dry or invisible warmth of the modern rooms. It is thick, pipe-fed, slightly metallic, carrying the scent of heated dust, wool coats, polished wood, and the faint bite of tobacco from someone who stepped out a little too recently. The corridor is narrow enough to make everyone graceful by necessity. You turn sideways as another passenger passes, both of you performing that silent railway dance known to anyone who has ever tried to move with dignity while carrying luggage. Records confirm that by 1956, American passenger trains still carried sleeping cars across long overnight routes, even as automobiles and air travel were beginning to pull many travellers away from the rails. Yet here, in this glowing corridor, the future feels far less convincing than the present. The present has brass handles. The present has green-shaded lamps. The present has a berth waiting behind curtains, and a small ladder tucked with perfect seriousness into a corner. Progress may be impressive, but progress does not always make up your bed. You follow the porter to your compartment, hearing the soft thud of carpet underfoot. Outside the window, the platform moves in fragments. A hat brim, a trunk, a woman tightening a scarf around her chin, a child pressing mittened fingers against the glass from the other side. The storm turns all of them into brief lantern pictures. They appear, blur, and vosh. Your room is small, but it has the noble confidence of a space designed by people who believed every inch should earn its keep. There is a folding wash basin, a mirror with rounded corners, a little shelf for your watch, a hook for your coat, and a seat that will later surrender itself into a bed. The upholstery is fur, the curtain heavy, the lamp gentle. You can hear the train breathing through the walls, a hidden animal of steam heat and steel joints. A curious footnote from old sleeping car life is that passengers sometimes left shoes outside their berth to be polished overnight. Trusting the staff with their footwear as casually as one might trust the moon with the tide, imagine that. You go to sleep with tired shoes, and in the morning they return brighter, as if they too enjoyed a better class of dream. It is charming, slightly absurd, and very much of its time. The conductor moves down the corridor, his punch clicking through tickets with the crisp authority of a tiny machine. Your ticket is accepted. Your place in the night is confirmed. There is comfort in that. The world may be storming itself into confusion outside, but on the train, there are compartments, numbers, schedules, towels, blanket, and someone who knows which latch sticks if the weather turns bitter. Beyond the glass, the station clock glows through the snowfall. The hands creep toward a departure. People on the platform lean closer to say last things. Some of those things are practical. Right when you arrive, keep your gloves dry. Do not forget the parcel. Some are softer, hidden under the louder sound of steam. You cannot hear every word, but you know the shape of farewell when you see it. Historians still weigh how much the decline of long-distance rail travel came from the rise of highways and airports, and how much came from the railroads themselves losing the will, the money, or the public patience to keep the old glamour polished. Tonight, that argument feels remote, like a newspaper folded in another room. What matters is that you are here while the ritual still lives. You are here while the sleeping car still receives you like a private promise. The train gives a deeper pull of breath. Somewhere forward, metal tightens. Couplers answer one another down the length of the cars, each with a muted knock, as if the whole train is counting itself awake. The lights on the platform tremble in the window. A porter calls softly to a late passenger. A suitcase bumps the step. A door shuts with a firm and final sound. Then the motion begins. At first, it is almost nothing. A gentle pressure beneath your shoes. A slow glide so smooth you doubt it, until the station wall starts to move backward. The platform slides away, taking with it the clock, the bundled families, the last waving hands, the bright ticket window, and the familiar world of fixed things. Snow fills the gap at once. You sit by the window as the city edge loosens into yards, warehouses, signal lights, and dark rows of houses with kitchen windows glowing. Someone in one of those houses is washing a cup. Someone is banking a stove. Someone is not going anywhere tonight, which seems sensible, though less interesting. The train continues north, choosing distance with every turn of its wheels. The rhythm settles under you. Steel on steel, a soft sway, a hush between joints. The storm taps against the window, then drags white fingers along the glass. You rest your hand on the armrest and feel the vibration pass upward, subtle and steady, like a second pulse. The Adirondacks wait ahead, hidden behind darkness and snow, but already the journey has entered you. You are leaving the ordinary world without hurry, wrapped in heat, shadow, and the long, calm promise of the night train. Your hand finds the small latch of the compartment door, and the room opens to you like a carefully folded secret. The train is moving now with steady confidence, and the sleeping car begins to reveal its quiet genius. It is not large, it does not pretend to be large. Instead, it behaves like a cabinet made for human dreams, with every surface shaped by use, every hinge trained by years of night travel. The first thing you notice is the lamp. It glows with a softened amber shade, warm enough to flatter tired faces and dim enough to forgive everything else. Your reflection in the mirror looks calmer than you feel. That is one of the little tricks of old railway lighting. It makes the world seem composed, even while a blizzard presses white palms against the glass. The window is dark except when snow catches the glow from within, turning each flake briefly bright before it vanishes. You place your suitcase on the narrow stand and hear the leather creak. The room answers with small sounds, the click of a hook, the side of a curtain ring, the faint tremble of the wash basin cover. Nothing here is silent, but nothing is loud. The sleeper car speaks in polished murmurs. The wood trim has been rubbed smooth by countless hands, and the metal fittings shine in those places where passengers have reached for them, while half awake. For much of the 20th century, the Pullman Company was the name most closely linked with American sleeping car service, shaping how many travellers imagined comfort on overnight rails. Its cars carried businessmen, families, soldiers, performers, newlyweds, and quiet souls who simply wanted to cross a great distance without surrendering entirely to discomfort. By 1956, that world is changing, yet the habits remain strong, the berth is still made with care, the corridor is still supervised, the night still has a proper order. You lower yourself onto the seat, and the cushion offers a firm, old-fashioned welcome. It does not swallow you, it supports you, as if comfort should maintain posture and morals at the same time. The wall beside you is close enough to touch without leaning far. The ceiling curves gently overhead. A little pocket holds printed instructions for calling the porter. Another small panel hides controls for the light and air. All of it feels both practical and ceremonial, as though someone has prepared a stage for sleeping. The train sways through darkness, and the motion makes the curtain breathe beside your shoulder. Out in the corridor, footsteps pass with the careful rhythm of people learning the balance of the car. A door slides. A suitcase knocks softly against a frame. Someone laughs in a low voice, then quickly remembers the hour and becomes civilized again. You smile without meaning to. Railway manners have a way of making strangers seem temporarily related. Oddly enough, some sleeping cars included tiny details that now feel almost theatrical, such as netted racks for hats, small shoe spaces, and little straps or guards to keep belongings from wandering during rougher stretches of track. The designers understood a truth that modern life sometimes forgets. At night, even a hairbrush can become a runaway object if the rails decide to be playful. Better to give everything a place, including the passenger. The berth has not yet been prepared, so you sit in the day arrangement and study how the room will transform. The seat will become part of the bed. The porter will bring sheets and blankets. The heavy curtain will close with a thick, private hush. A ladder may appear if an upper berth is needed, making sleep feel just a little like boarding a small ship. There is comedy in that, gentle and harmless. The human body wants rest, and those railroad answers with pulleys, snaps, canvas, and faith. The scent of the car deepens as the heat settles. You catch wool drying near a radiator pipe, soap from the folded towel, wax polish from the wood, and the faint mineral smell of snow melting somewhere near the vestibule. Your fingers brush the blankets stacked nearby. It is coarse, dense, and honest, not luxurious in the modern sense. Perhaps, but convincing. It seems made for storms, not advertisements. Rail scholars remain divided on whether sleeper travel in the 1950s should be remembered as lingering elegance, or as a system already showing its age beneath the varnish. You can understand both sides from where you sit. The car is beautiful, yes, but also cramped. The fittings are clever, but clearly worked hard by time. The service is graceful, but it depends on long hours and invisible labour. Nostalgia, like a steamed window, shows some things clearly and blurs others. Still, the night inside this compartment has its own authority. You unbutton your coat and let the warmth reach your shoulders. The storm outside cannot enter, though it keeps trying with every slap of snow against the pane. The train curves, and your body leans softly with it. There is no need to resist. The sleeper car teaches surrender in small lessons. Sit here, place that there. Let the porter arrange the bed. Let the wheels keep time. Let the mountains come when they are ready. You hear a knock at the door, gentle as a question. The porter asks whether you would like the berth made up soon. His voice is calm and practiced and respectful, carrying the ease of someone who has turned thousands of tight rooms into bedrooms. While the floor moved under his feet, you answer quietly. He nods and begins the transformation with swift hands. The seat folds, the bedding opens, sheets snap once, softly then settle into place. A pillow appears, white and square, smelling faintly of starch. The blanket is drawn smooth, and the curtain is tested. The room changes from sitting space to sleeping chamber, and somehow the train seems to lower its voice in approval. You remove your shoes, set them neatly aside, and sit on the edge of the berth. The mattress is narrow, but the narrowness feels protective. The lamp glows beside you. The window holds only snow and your own dim reflection. Around you, the sleeping car continues its patient work, carrying warmth through the blizzard, carrying strangers through the night, carrying you into the old and tender privacy of travel by rail. Your mind drifts with the widening rhythm of the wheels. The first slow glide has become a confident roll, and the train now seems to know exactly where it is going. Even if the world outside has lost all edges, the city thins behind you in soft pieces. Brick walls pass, coal yards pass, rows of back windows shine for a moment, each one holding a private evening, then slip into the white curtain of snow. The rails begin their song beneath the floor. It is not one sound, but many layered together. A deep turning murmur rises from the wheels. A lighter tapping answers at the joints somewhere below. Metal plates complain gently, then settle again. You feel all of it through the berth, through the soles of your stockinged feet, through the little shelf where your watch trembles with every mile. The train is a musical instrument, and winter is drawing the bow. Outside, the last city lamps stretch into glowing threads. A crossing bell flashes red through the storm, then disappears. A road runs beside the track for a while, carrying a few stubborn automobiles whose headlights look uncertain and small. They creep through drifts and slush while the train sweeps forward with the calm pride of something much larger than weather. One cannot help feeling a little smug on behalf of rail travel. It is not a noble emotion, perhaps, but it is a warm one. By the 1950s, diesel locomotives had taken over many passenger routes in the United States, replacing steam power on line after line because they were cleaner and leaner to operate, easier to maintain, and often more efficient. Even so, her passengers still spoke of trains as if every engine had a breath and a temper. The old language remained. People still said the train sighed, pulled, thundered, and slept. Machines change faster than imagination does. You listen as the locomotive leans into the storm. You cannot see it from your compartment, but you can sense its effort through the whole length of the train. The cars follow with obedient weight, each coupled to the next, each bearing its little island of sleepers, coats, thermos bottles, folded newspapers, and half-finished thoughts. The corridor lamp throws a thin gold line under your door. Beyond it, footsteps fade, return, and fade again. The city gives way to smaller stations, storage sheds, frozen lots, and dark fields. Snow lies along fences like flour sifted too generously over a table. Telegraph poles follow the track in patient ranks, their wires sagging under frost. At times the train enters a cut between snowy banks, and the window fills entirely with white, so close it feels as if the earth itself has risen to peer inside. Then the view opens again, and distant farm lights blink under the storm. A curious old belief among some frequent travellers claimed that you could tell the condition of the track by the quality of your dreams. Smooth rail, they said, brought clear, dreams. Rough rail brought tangled ones. No timetable ever admitted this. Of course, no railway engineer placed dream management among official duties. Still, as the wheels settle into a finer rhythm, you may find the idea not entirely foolish. The body listens to rails more deeply than pride admits. The train begins to move through open country, and the storm sounds different here, in town. Snow had tapped against awnings, windows, and station signs. Here, it rushes unhindered across fields and strikes the glass in long, dry whispers, The wind gathers over the low ground, sweeps against the side of the car, though, and makes the wall give a faint shiver. The berth holds you steady. The blanket gathers warmth over your knees. The lamp remains patient and round, a small indoor moon. Scholars continue to question how much overnight rail travel shaped American ideas of distance, of privacy, and comfort during the middle 20th century. Some argue that sleeper trains made vast landscapes feel intimate, turning hundreds of miles into a series of meals, naps, and window scenes. Others point out that the comfort was uneven, divided by class, race, route, and price. The lullaby of the rails was real, but not everyone received the same pillow. You turn this over gently as the train passes a darkened freight siding. Boxcars sit there under snow, still and massive, their markings blurred. A single lamp burns near a switch stand. For a moment, you glimpse a worker in a heavy coat, shoulders bent against the wind, his lantern held low. Then he is gone behind the blowing white. The railway is not only the polished sleeper and the tucked sheet, it is also the cold hand on the switch, the inspected brake line, the watch kept in weather no one would choose for pleasure. The track curves, and the train answers with a graceful lean. Your compartment tilts just enough to remind you that you are not in a room fixed to the earth. You're in motion, carried by judgment, steel, and habit. The window frame creaks softly. The curtain stirs. Somewhere in the car a coat hanger clicks once against the wall, a tiny punctuation in the long sentence of the night. You pass another crossing. The whistle sounds ahead, softened by the distance and snow, stretching into the dark like a call from some patient animal. It is not frightening, it is lonely, but in a generous way. It bells the roads, the farms, the sleeping towns, and any wakeful soul under a quilt that the night train is coming through. It says that travel continues, even in weather that would rather everyone stayed home and behaved sensibly. Now the last glow of the city has truly vanished. The world outside is mostly shadow, snow, and the occasional signal burning green or amber through the storm. The rails carry you northward into deeper winter. Your breathing slows to match the wheels. The train no longer feels like something you boarded. It feels like a moving room inside the weather, a warm thought crossing a frozen page. The corridor carries a new fragrance toward you, richer than heated wool and polished wood, coffee, toasted bread, butter warming in a silver dish. The scent slips under doors and around curtains with quiet confidence, as if the dining car has sent a messenger through the sleeping train to remind every passenger that civilization still exists, even while snow hammers the windows like an overexcited guest with poor manners. You rise from the berth and straighten your clothing in the little mirror. The train sways as you button your coat, making the simple act feel like a test of character. One sleeve resists, a cuff turns inward. You recover with dignity, because no one has seen this minor struggle except your own reflection, which looks far too amused. You step into the corridor, where the lamps glow warmly along the ceiling, and the carpet absorbs the careful sound of your feet. Moving through the train at night is its own small adventure. You pass sleeping compartments, each one hiding a private world. Behind one curtain, someone turns a page, behind another. A low voice murmurs good night. The vestibule between cars waits ahead, colder and louder, with metal plates shifting beneath you and a narrow window thick with frost. You place one hand on the rail, feel the chill through your fingers, and cross carefully from one warm car to the next. The dining car opens like a stage set. Tables line the windows, each dressed with white cloths that somehow remain calm despite the motion. Lamps cast golden circles over silverware, folded napkins, water glasses, and little dishes of butter. The storm makes the windows nearly black, except when snow strikes close enough to flash in the light. It feels as if the whole room is floating through a bottle of ink and milk. Railway dining in the middle 20th century was an important part of long-distance passenger service, and many railroads treated meals as a public display of quality. Menus, china patterns, uniformed staff, and regional dishes all helped create the feeling that the journey itself had dignity. A ticket did not merely move you from one place to another, it placed you inside a ritual, and the dining car was where that ritual learned to speak with coffee cups and knives. You are shown to a table by the window. The chair is steady, though the train is not, and the trick is to move with the car instead of against it. The waiter sets down a menu with practiced ease. The paper is heavy, the lettering is formal, the choices feel comforting in their certainty. Soup, roast chicken, potatoes, rolls, pie, coffee, nothing theatrical, nothing nervous, nothing served as a tower with a decorative leaf on top. Food in this car understands weather. Across from you sits a woman in a dark hat, travelling alone with a book beside her plate. She nods politely. Nearby, two men in heavy jackets speak of road conditions with the grim pleasure of people who enjoy bad news when they are safely indoors. A young couple studies the menu as if it were a legal document. The dining car rocks gently, and everyone adjusts without comment. This is how strangers become temporary citizens of the same moving country. A peculiar little tradition of railway dining was the fame of certain railroad recipes. Some travellers remembered a route not only by its scenery, but by its rolls, its coffee, or its pie. There were passengers who praised a dining car meal for years, with the seriousness usually reserved for battlefield speeches and family legends. One suspects the pie improved slightly each time the story was told, but that is the proper fate of pie in memory. Your soup arrives in a bowl that is not quite as full as it might be on solid ground. This is wisdom, not stinginess. The train dips through a curve, and the surface trembles with tiny rings. You lift the spoon carefully. The soup is hot, savoury, and plain in the best sense. It tastes of onions, broth, pepper, and rescue. Outside, the storm has erased the land. Inside, a waiter refills water without spilling a drop, which feels like a minor miracle performed in a white jacket. The coffee follows, dark and steady. Its steam rises into the lamplight. You wrap your fingers around the cup and feel warmth gather in your hands. The silverware clicks softly around you. Plates arrive and depart. The wheels below keep their patient rhythm, turning supper into something almost musical. Fork, rail joint, cup, rail joint, low conversation, rail joint. The train sets the tempo, and the dining car obeys. Specialists still disagree about whether dining cars should be remembered mostly as symbols of gracious travel, or as expensive services that railroads struggle to justify. The meals could be elegant, but the labour behind them was intense. Cooks worked in narrow kitchens that shook and swayed. Waiters balanced trays through curves. Supplies had to be loaded, stored, counted, cooked, served, and cleaned while the train kept moving. The calm room you see is built on hidden effort. You glance toward the kitchen door as it swings open. For a moment, you glimpse heat, movement, white sleeves, stacked plates, and the bright flash of a pan. Then the door swings closed again, and the illusion returns. The dining car remains composed, fragrant, and serene. It is rather like theatre, except the stage is crossing a frozen state in the dark, and the actors are also responsible for not dropping your potatoes. Your main dish arrives, simple and generous. The chicken is tender, the potatoes soft, the roll warm enough to melt butter into shining rivers. You eat slowly, not because the meal demands ceremony, but because the train teaches patience. Each bite belongs to the motion, to the snow, to the lamp beside the window. You do not hurry through a meal when the world outside has become a blizzard, and the nearest road looks like a poor life choice. Dessert is pie, because some decisions require no debate. The crust flakes under your fork, the filling is sweet, spiced and warm around you. Voices grow softer. The young couple laughs over a shared cup of coffee. The woman with the book turns a page without reading it. The men in jackets fall silent, perhaps out of respect for pie, which is as reasonable a cause as any. When you leave the dining car, the warmth follows you like a cloak. The storm presses harder against the vestibule window, but you carry supper within you now. Coffee, lamplight, silverware, and the quiet grace of strangers remain in your senses. The train rolls north through the white dark, and you return to your berth with the deep comfort of having been fed while the winter world kept watch outside. The window has become a theatre of weather. You sit close to it, not too close, because the glass carries a faint cold that even the train heat cannot fully defeat. Snow strikes, slides, sticks, and vanishes. Some flakes flatten themselves against the pane like tiny white hands. Others streak sideways, driven by wind so fierce that falling no longer seems to interest them. The night outside has stopped being scenery. It has become motion. Your compartment glows behind you, reflected faintly in the glass. The lamp, the folded blanket, the edge of your sleeve, and your own watchful face hover over the storm as if painted on darkness. Beyond that reflection, the world is difficult to trust. A fence appears, then dissolves. A row of trees flashes by in black ribs. A lonely farmhouse window shines for 3 seconds, warm and square, then is gone so completely that you wonder whether you imagined it. Winter is a skilled magician, and like many magicians, slightly rude. The train pushes onward with a heavier sound now. The wheels still keep their rhythm, but the storm adds its own percussion. Snow rattles against metal seams, wind presses against the side of the car, then releases, then presses again. When the train passes through a cut in the land, the noise deepens, as though the blizzard has found a narrow throat and is shouting through it. You feel the car sway, but not uncertainly. It moves like a large animal lowering its head into weather it has met before. By 1956, railroads in the northern United States had long experience operating through severe winter conditions, using snowplows, switch heaters, extra crews, and careful dispatching to keep trains moving when roads might close. The systems were not magical, no matter what a warm passenger might prefer to believe. They depended on labour, planning, equipment, and a great deal of human patience in miserable conditions. Still, from your berth, the result feels nearly miraculous. A bed, a lamp, a window, and beyond it a storm that cannot quite win. The glass grows cloudy around the edges. Your breath adds a temporary mist, a small human weather inside the room. You draw a circle with one finger, then stop, because the act feels childish, and also because it is pleasant, which is usually why people stop doing such things when they become grown. Through the cleared place, you see snow lifting from the ground in pale waves. It moves not downward, but across, as if the land itself is being swept clean by an invisible broom. A wonderfully odd note from railway law says that some passengers believed the safest place in a storm was not at home, but aboard a moving train, because the train had crews awake all night, signals ahead, and rails beneath it. This was not always strictly true. Of course, weather enjoys embarrassing human confidence, yet you understand the feeling. A house may stand still and creak alone. A train keeps company with its own purpose. It has a timetable to defend, which gives even the wind something to argue with. The storm thickens until distance disappears. The window no longer shows landscape, only layers of white speed. Snow close to the glass races backward in bright streaks. Snow farther away turns slowly in the dark. Now and then, a signal lamp burns through the blur, green or amber, steady as a thought held under water. Each signal passes with a solemn authority. The train obeys them, trusting messages set along the line by unseen hands. You lean back and listen. The blizzard changes the sound of everything. The whistle ahead seems softer, wrapped in snow before it reaches you. The rails sound more private, as though the storm has closed the doors of the world. Even the voices in nearby compartments are muted. A cough, a page turning, a shoe set down carefully. all reach you through layers of carpet, curtain, steel and weather. The car has become a long, warm envelope addressed to morning. No agreement has been reached on whether mid-century winter train journeys should be remembered mainly as practical transportation or as emotional experiences shaped by memory, film, advertising, and family stories. The practical side is easy to name. People needed to reach mountain towns, work sites, relatives, hotels, and winter holidays. Yet memory adds lanterns, cocoa, brave engines, and windows glazed with snow. Perhaps both views are true. Perhaps usefulness becomes romance when seen through a sleeping car window at night. A gust slams the car with sudden force. The wall gives a brief shudder. Somewhere down the corridor, a latch clicks sharply. Then the train steadies, and the ordinary rhythm returns. You feel your shoulders relax. 'Tis strange how quickly the body learns trust. A moment of alarm, a moment of listening, then the wheels resume their quiet persuasion. All is well enough. The train is still moving, the lamp still burns, the blanket still warms your knees. Outside, the blizzard scours the fields, covers roads, buries tracks of animals, softens fence posts, and gathers on the roofs of barns until they seem to bow under white silence. The world is being simplified, dark shapes become gentler, sharp lines disappear. Mistakes are hidden. Even the most practical objects, a gate, a shed, a stack of cut wood, become mysterious under snow. Winter edits the land with a generous hand. You press the curtain partly closed, leaving a narrow view of the storm. Complete darkness would feel too final, but the full window is almost too alive. Through that small opening, you watch the snow continue its endless sideways flight. The train carries you through it, not as a conqueror, not as a victim, but as a warm passage through a cold argument. The blizzard may rage all night, the glass may tremble, yet inside your breathing slows, and the storm becomes something you can safely hear. The corridor has changed its character now. Earlier it felt like a narrow passage between small private rooms, but in the deepening night it becomes something closer to a watch post. Lamps glow at measured intervals, shadows gather into the corners where luggage rests and coats hang from hooks. The carpet darkens under the soft light, and the whole car rocks with a slow, breathing patience. You slide your door open a little and listen. The storm is loud against the outer walls, yet inside the sleeper there is a disciplined quiet. A cup settles in its saucer somewhere nearby. A curtain ring gives a tiny metallic tick. Farther along, a pair of shoes is set down with care. Then you see the porter moving through the corridor, steady as a clock hand, one palm lightly touching the wall when the train sways. He wears a uniform that has seen a long night already, though he keeps it neat. His shoes shine despite the weather, which seems almost unfair to the rest of humanity. His expression is calm, not blank, not cheerful in a forced way, but composed with the skill of someone who knows that nervous passengers borrow confidence from the nearest competent face. In a blizzard, that face matters. Historical records show that sleeping car porters were essential to American overnight rail travel, especially on Pullman-operated cars, where they made berths and carried luggage, shined shoes, answered bells, brought pillows, cared for passengers, and often worked very long hours. Many were black men whose labour helped define the comfort and dignity of rail journeys for generations. The polished romance of sleeper travel rested in large part on their patience, skill, and endurance. You watch him pause outside a compartment and knock softly. Not a sharp knock, not a knock that scolds the sleeper. It is the kind of knock that asks permission to exist. A muffled voice answers, and he opens the door just wide enough to speak. A blanket is requested. He nods, disappears toward the service end of the car, and returns with one folded over his arm, as neatly as if it had been pressed by snowfall itself. The train sways, and he adjusts without looking down. That is the remarkable part. You're still thinking about where to place your feet. He moves as if the floor were perfectly still, as if the blizzard outside were merely a noisy neighbour. He braces a cup, catches a sliding newspaper, closes a stubborn latch, and turns down a lamp, all with small motions that waste nothing. One curious footnote from Porter life is that some regular travellers expected their preferences to be remembered with almost royal seriousness. A certain pillow, a certain berth direction, coffee at a certain hour, shoes placed just so. Humans are wonderfully strange creatures. Give us a moving bed in a snowstorm, and we still develop opinions about the angle of a blanket. The porter often remembered these details, not because the train required it, but because service became a kind of memory carried in motion. You step into the corridor to stretch your legs. The carpet is warm under your feet, though a draught sneaks in from the vestibule and brushes your ankles with cold fingers. The porter turns toward you at once, asking if everything is comfortable. The question is simple, yet it carries an entire profession inside it. Is the berth warm enough? Is the window secured? Has the storm unsettled you? Do you need water, another pillow, a quieter lamp, a little reassurance disguised as routine? You say that all is well. He nods, but his eyes check the corridor anyway. He notices what most passengers do not. A bag leaning too far into the walkway, a door not fully latched, a loose curtain edge, a patch of melted snow near the car end and what could make someone slip. The sleeping car may look peaceful, but peace, you begin to understand, is being maintained by quiet inspections. Experts still debate how best to remember the porter system, since it offered stable employment and community standing to many men, while also demanding exhausting service under unequal social rules. Some accounts emphasize pride, professionalism, organising, and the role porters played in black middle-class life. Others stress the indignities, low pay, long absences from home, and the burden of constant deference. Both truths walk the same corridor tonight. The porter moves to the linen cabinet and opens it with a small key. Inside are folded sheets, towels, blankets, and pillowcases stacked in careful order. The sight is unexpectedly soothing. In the midst of the winter chaos, here is cotton arranged by human hands. He checks the supply, counts with a glance, then closes the door. Order has been confirmed. The night may proceed. A bell sounds from one compartment, soft but distinct. He answers it without hurry. That is another skill, you think, not rushing yet never seeming slow. A passenger asks about the next stop, though the next stop may be little more than a platform blurred by snow. The porter explains the timing in a low voice. He does not promise what weather might steal. He says what is known and leaves room for the storm to be unreasonable. You return to your berth, but keep the door open a crack. Through it, you see him pass again, carrying a small tray with a glass of water. The lamp catches the edge of his sleeve. The train leans through a curve. He leans with it. Nothing spills. There is comfort in the sight beyond anything written on a timetable. The porter is part of the train in the way the wheels are part of it. In the way the lamps and brakes and heated pipes are part of it. He keeps the human machinery working. He turns anxiety into requests, requests into action, action into calm. At last, the corridor grows quieter. The bells rest. The doors close. The porter stands for a moment near the end of the car, listening to the storm, the wheels, the sleeping passengers, and perhaps to thoughts of his own that no traveller has purchased the right to know. Then he moves on, soft-footed and steady, while the sleeper carries its warm cargo deeper into the winter night. The berth has become a small reading room, rocking gently through the storm. You sit with your back against the pillow, blanket drawn to your waist, and spread the little papers of travel across your knees. A timetable, a folded route leaflet, 2 postcards bought at the station because buying postcards before arriving somewhere is a quiet act of optimism. There is also a pencil, short and sharpened unevenly, resting beside your watch like a tool prepared for important decisions. The lamp above your shoulder shines down in a circle just wide enough for the papers. Beyond that circle, the compartment softens into shadow. The window is partly curtained, though snow light still flickers at the edge whenever the train passes a signal or a lonely lamp. The rails keep speaking below you, and the rhythm makes the printed words seem to breathe. Town names, departure times, dining hours, station stops. The timetable is not just information, it is a promise with columns. Railway timetables in the mid-20th century were essential public documents, listing routes, connections, services, and station times for passengers who often planned complicated journeys without instant communication. A person could study one of these folded sheets and imagine a whole geography unfolding by rail. The paper placed mountains, cities, lakes, and small depots into order. It told you where the train intended to be, which is rather bold. Considering weather has always had opinions, you trace the route northward with one finger. Some names are familiar, others feel like dark shapes waiting beyond the glass. The Adirondack country appears in hints, lakes hidden under ice, forests heavy with snow, villages where smoke rises from chimneys before dawn, hotels with porches facing frozen water, ski slopes where the wind will polish the surface overnight, logging roads disappearing into pines. The timetable says little of these things directly, but paper can be modest while still awakening the mind. One postcard shows a lake under summer light, which feels almost comic while the blizzard claws at the train. Another shows a mountain hotel with clean white verandas and confident lettering. The building looks prepared to receive people with trunks, gloves, fur collars, and a belief that fresh air can fix almost anything. You turn the card over, the blank space waits, half of a message is already forming in your mind. Dear friend, you might write, the storm has followed us since departure, but the car is warm and supper was better than expected. You pause there, because better than expected is faint praise for pie that behaved heroically. You imagine writing, the snow is so thick that the windows show almost nothing, and yet the train keeps moving. That is the sort of sentence people save, because it suggests courage without requiring anyone to shovel. The Adirondacks had long attracted visitors seeking clean air, mountain scenery, hunting, fishing, winter sport, and escape from crowded cities. Rail service helped make such travel possible for people who did not own automobiles or did not wish to challenge mountain roads in bad weather. By 1956, the region was both a landscape of older wilderness dreams and a practical destination for holidays, work, family visits, and seasonal travel. You look again at the postcards and begin to sense the different reasons hidden inside the sleeping car. Some passengers are heading toward leisure, which always sounds simple until one remembers the planning required to relax properly. Some are visiting relatives in towns where winter closes around houses like a second roof. Some may be workers returning to hotels, camps, rail yards, shops, or lumber operations. Some travel for health, habit, grief, romance, or the plain human need to be somewhere else by morning. A small oddity of postcard culture is that many people wrote almost nothing on them, arrived safely, weather cold, having a fine time, or... These tiny messages crossed states carrying a weight they never admitted. A few words, a picture of a lake, a stamp, a postmark, and suddenly someone far away knew that you had not vanished into the world. It is comforting, really. Humanity invented many grand systems, but sometimes all it wants is a card saying the food is good and the snow is deep. You take the pencil and write the date carefully. The train jolts, and the pencil makes a small crooked mark. You decide it adds character. Perfection is difficult enough on solid ground. In a moving berth during a blizzard, it is frankly showing off. You continue anyway, forming slow letters while the car rocks. Your handwriting becomes rounder, sleepier, more forgiving. The message turns inward as you write. You mention the warm berth, the white storm, the dining car lamps, the sound of the whistle muffled by snow. You do not explain why the journey feels important, not fully. Some things become smaller when written too directly. Instead, you say that the mountains are ahead and the night is peaceful in a strange way. That will have to do. Researchers still quarrel over whether postcards and railway brochures show genuine travel experience, or mostly the dream that companies wanted passengers to buy. The pictures are too clean, the sky's too blue, the hotels too perfectly placed against the hills, yet people use those same images to mark real birthdays, real honeymoons, real recoveries, real departures from ordinary life. Advertising and memory mingle like steam on cold glass. You fold the timetable along its worn crease. The paper has already been opened and closed many times, and the crease knows its duty. You place the postcards beside it, one written, one still blank. The blank one pleases you. It holds tomorrow without demanding it. Perhaps it will be sent from a village station, perhaps from a hotel desk, perhaps never. Not every message must travel. The train enters a quieter stretch. The wheels smooth out for several minutes, and the storm seems farther away, as if the car has slipped into a tunnel made of sleep. Your papers lie under the lamp, ordinary and tender. Times, towns, pictures, handwriting, small things, yet they make the journey human. Without them, travel is only distance. With them, distance becomes a story that can be folded, carried, mailed, saved in a drawer, and found years later with a faint smell of paper, dust, and winter. You set the pencil down, the lamp hums softly, the berth sways, outside, the mountains remain unseen. But the names on the timetable have begun to feel close, almost intimate, as if the train is not merely approaching them, but speaking them into the night one by one. The train slows just enough for you to feel the night change shape. The wheels no longer rush with the same unbroken confidence. They measure the rails more carefully now, as if listening for instructions hidden beneath the snow. You lift the curtain a little wider and see a dim lamp ahead. A single point of colour trembling through the storm. It hangs there for a moment in the white blur, then slides past the window and vanishes behind you. Signals in snow have a strange beauty. They do not decorate the railway. They govern it. Red, green, amber, white. Each light has meaning. Each meaning has consequence, and every consequence belongs to steel, speed, and human trust. In the blizzard, the lamps look almost tender, yet their authority is absolute. A warm passenger may be forgiven for thinking them romantic. A crew member knows better. Romance is lovely, but stopping distance is not a poem. You watch another signal emerge from the blowing dark. Its glow spreads through the snow like colour dropped into milk. For one breath, the whole window becomes pale green. Then the train moves beyond it, and your compartment returns to amber shadow. The berth rocks, the lamp hums, the rails continue north, guided by messages placed along the line by people who must imagine the train before it arrives. Railroads in the United States use signalling systems, timetables, dispatchers, and train orders to help keep traffic separated and moving safely, especially on busy or difficult routes. By the middle 20th century, many lines relied on coloured light signals or older mechanical systems to tell engineers whether to proceed, slow, or stop. The system may appear simple from a sleeper window, but it rests on rules, maintenance, discipline, and the habit of obeying small lights in enormous darkness. The train passes a little station with its nameboard half buried in snow. You cannot read the letters. The platform is empty except for a baggage cart wearing a white cap, a bench nearly swallowed, and a station lamp fighting bravely against the wind. The building itself seems asleep. Though smoke rises from a chimney at the rear, someone inside may be awake, tending a stove or checking a register, listening for the sound of wheels through the storm. A switch stand appears, Low and dark beside the track, its target crusted with snow. You only see it because a lantern beam catches the metal for an instant. Then comes a figure in a heavy coat, standing with shoulders hunched and boots planted wide. He holds a lantern near his knee, the glass glowing against the storm. The train passes him slowly enough that you glimpse his mittened hand lifting in acknowledgement. It is not a grand gesture, it is better than grand. It is useful. A curious detail from railway work is that switch points could become clogged with ice and packed snow, forcing workers to clear them by hand or protect them with heaters, brooms, rods, and stubborn patience. There are few less glamorous enemies than frozen slush wedged into the wrong piece of track, yet that small enemy could delay a mighty train. History is full of kings and generals, but sometimes the night belongs to a person with a lantern and a metal bar. Persuading a switch to behave, the storm thickens around the station. Snow spins in the light from the windows, making the air look crowded. A telegraph pole leans near the track, wires sagging in white arcs. Some lines now carry messages by telephone rather than telegraph, but the old poles still seem to hold conversations across the countryside. They stand in rows like tired sentries, keeping company with the rails over hills, past fields, through cuts, and into the dark timber ahead. You imagine the dispatcher somewhere far away, bent over a sheet or board, following the positions of trains by report, signal, time, and discipline guesswork. The passengers sleep, eat pie, read postcards, and complain mildly about drafts. The railway thinks in another language entirely, though it is still English. Of course, no need to make the night more complicated. It thinks in clear track, occupied block, meet, siding, delay, caution, and proceed. It thinks in safety first, beauty later. Scholars argue over whether the old railway landscape should be seen as a triumph of coordination or as a fragile system held together by constant human vigilance. The signals seem firm and the rules seem exact. Yet the blizzard shows how much depends on eyes, hands, memory, judgment, and the willingness of workers to stand outside while others sleep under blankets. The system is powerful, but it is not impersonal. It has faces, even when the snow hides them. The train enters a siding for a short stretch, and the sound changes. The rails beneath you feel slightly different, rougher, more intimate. Speed falls away. The whole car grows alert, somewhere forward. Brakes breathe in a long controlled sigh. The storm rushes against the window, suddenly louder in the slower motion. You see a second track beside yours, shining darkly where snow has not quite covered it. Then another train appears. At first it is only a glow ahead, blurred and shapeless. Then the glow becomes windows, many windows, moving slowly past in the opposite direction. Freight cars follow, dark and snow-crusted, their sides marked with pale streaks. You feel the heavy presence of them through the wall, a deep passing thunder held politely in check. For several long moments, the two trains share the storm, each one full of its own purpose, each one trusting the same cold geometry of rails, switches, signals, and orders. When the last freight car passes, a red marker light fades into the white dark. Your train waits a moment longer, as if listening for permission. Then the signal ahead brightens through the storm, and the wheels take up their stronger rhythm again. The siding falls behind. The lonely station disappears. The worker with the lantern becomes part of the night. You settle back against the pillow, feeling newly aware of the world beyond the glass. The sleeper is warm. Yes, the blanket is soft, the lamp steady, the corridor quiet. But around this comfort lies an unseen web of labour and rule, stretched through the forest and snow. The train does not simply move, it is allowed to move, guided to move, watched while it moves. In that knowledge, the night grows deeper, safer, and more wondrous. Midnight settles over the train, not suddenly, but with the slow confidence of snow filling a footprint. The hour no longer feels like a number on your watch. It becomes a substance, deep and blue-black, pressing gently against the windows while the sleeper rocks northward into the Adirondack dark. You lie beneath the blanket, eyes half open, listening as the wheels turn the night into rhythm. The mountains are near now, though they do not announce themselves with drama. No trumpets, no grand curtain rising, no polite mountain official stepping forward to say, "Welcome. Please, mind the ice." Instead, the land changes by degrees. The track curves more often. The train leans into grades with a firmer pull. The wind sounds thicker among the trees. The darkness beyond the window grows crowded, filled with trunks, slopes, ravines, and the unseen weight of high ground gathering around you. Your compartment feels smaller in the best possible way. The berth holds your body like a narrow cradle, and each sway encourages surrender. The pillow smells faintly of starch, the blanket rests heavy over your shoulder. A tiny draught slips along the window frame, cool enough to remind you that comfort is not the same as conquest. Outside, winter owns the mountains completely. Inside, you have a lamp, a berth, and the old human talent for pretending a thin wall is enough. State records show that New York created Adirondack Park in the late 19th century, and its protected forest lands became central to one of the largest public conservation landscapes in the United States. Long before your train glides through this storm, people argued, planned, surveyed, logged, hunted, vacationed, and legislated over these northern woods. The mountains are not empty scenery. They're a living argument between use and preservation, profit and beauty, axe and pine needle. The train moves through that argument without speaking. You see only fragments, a steep bank packed with snow, a wall of spruce and fir, black against the white ground, a brook glimpsed as a pale scar under ice. Then the window becomes a mirror again, giving you back your own face and the amber lamp behind you. You look sleepy, which is appropriate. Midnight does not reward alertness too generously. A homely mountain superstition once claimed that deep winter forests grew quieter because the snow was listening. Naturally, no sensible person would build a theory of nature on that. But lying here, you understand the temptation. The snow does seem to listen. It listens to the rails, the whistle, the breath of sleeping passengers, the faint rattle of hangers, the muted cough of someone behind a curtain. It listens so well that every sound feels carefully received. The locomotive works harder on the grille. You cannot see the engine, but you feel its effort travel backward through the couplers and floors. The rhythm changes from easy running to a steadier climb. It is not strained, exactly. It is determined. The cars follow with patient weight, like beads drawn along a cord. Somewhere beneath you, wheels bite the rails. Somewhere ahead, a headlight tunnels into flakes so thick they might be mistaken for smoke. Interpretations part ways over whether the Adirondack should be understood chiefly as a wilderness saved from industry, or as a homeland and workplace shaped by many communities over time. The romantic picture favours untouched forest, silent lakes, and noble isolation. The fuller story includes native presence, surveyors, guides, farmers, hotel workers, loggers, railroad crews, wealthy visitors, and small towns that endured long winters with practical courage. The mountains are magnificent, yes, but they are not simple. You pass a cluster of dark buildings near the track. Perhaps it's a hamlet, perhaps a work camp, perhaps only storage sheds and a siding. A single porch light burns under a cap of snow. The light does not flicker. It holds steady as the train passes, and that steadiness feels almost intimate. Someone filled that lamp. Someone will wake in that building before dawn and find the world reshaped by the storm. You pass them gently, a warm train sliding through there midnight. The forest closes again. Branches carry so much snow that they bend low, forming white arches near the track. In the brief shine from the window, each bough looks carved, then gone. The train seems to thread a tunnel made not of stone, but of sleeping trees. If you listen closely, beneath the louder rail rhythm, you can hear another sound, the soft brush of snow thrown aside by the moving cars, a faint shushing at the edge of hearing. Your body begins to confuse motion with stillness. The rocking becomes the room, the rail joints become a pulse, the storm becomes a blanket beyond the blanket. You turn onto your side and the berth creaks softly, accepting the adjustment. A small metal catch in the wall gives one neat click. Then all returns to the deep, murmuring order of the night. The Adirondacks outside are old in a way that makes human schedules seem slightly adorable. The train carries printed times, tickets, dining hours, berth numbers, and careful instructions. The mountains carry granite, ice, routes, old paths, and weather that has no interest in your itinerary. Yet for this one night, railway time and mountain time overlap. Steel crosses forest, sleep crosses distance. Your small room moves through a vast cold country. The whistle sounds ahead, lower now, softened by trees and snowbanks. It rolls outward and comes back changed, as if the mountains have answered in their sleep. You feel the answer more than hear it. A hollow space opens somewhere beyond the track. Perhaps a frozen lake. Perhaps a valley hidden under storm. Then the train curves, and the forest returns close to the glass. Your eyelids grow heavier. The lamp seems warmer, the shadows softer, the wheels more distant. You are not fully asleep, not fully awake. You are suspended in the old middle place that sleeper trains know so well, where landscape enters the mind without demanding attention. The Adirondack night carries on outside, immense and snow-covered. The train carries on inside it, warm, narrow, and faithful, rocking you through midnight as gently as if the mountains themselves had agreed to let you dream. Warmth reaches you in layers, not all at once. First it gathers at your feet, then along your knees, then across your shoulders where the wool blanket lies with the calm authority of something made for serious winters. The sleeper car holds heat the way a kettle holds steam, with small sighs, faint ticks, and the occasional soft knock from pipes hidden behind polished panels. Outside the glass, snow scrapes sideways through darkness. Inside, you are wrapped in a narrow climate of your own. The radiator pipe along the wall gives off a dry metallic scent. It mingles with soap, cloth, dust, and the faint sweetness of varnished wood. The heat is not perfectly even. Near the window, a cool ribbon of air slips downward. Near the pipe, your blanket grows almost too warm. You're just one shoulder, then one foot, then the edge of the sheet, discovering that sleeping comfortably on a moving train is less a position and more a negotiation. Passenger rail cars of this period commonly use steam heat, carried through pipes from the locomotive or from heating equipment in the train, warming the cars through radiators and lines built into the system. It was effective, especially in deep winter, but it required attention. Pipes could clank, valves could hiss, heat could arrive with great enthusiasm in one berth and behave like a shy guest in another. Technology, as usual, had personality. You listen to the pipe nearest your berth. It ticks as metal expands, then settles, then ticks again. The sound is tiny, domestic, almost companionable. It reminds you that warmth is being delivered to you through a chain of effort. Fuel is burned, water is heated, pressure moves through hidden passages. A crew monitors the system, while the passengers turn over and wonder whether one more inch of blanket would achieve perfection. Humanity is majestic and also very particular about toes. The blanket itself deserves respect. It is thick, woolen, faintly rough, and heavier than anything pretending to be luxurious in a shop window. It does not float, it settles, it holds you down just enough to quiet the body. When you pull it under your chin, you feel its fibers brush your skin with a scratchy honesty that says, "I am not here to impress you. I am here to keep you alive. Fair enough, blanket." That is a strong argument. One odd little memory from winter train travel is that some passengers complained of being too hot during blizzards and secretly cracked a window, creating a private weather system of hot pipes and icy drafts. This was not always appreciated by neighbours. Naturally, nothing builds community faster than one passenger seeking fresh air while another silently prepares a speech about frozen ankles. In a sleeping car, comfort is personal, but air has no manners. The train enters a rougher stretch of track, and the berth answers with a deeper sway. The blanket shifts but does not slide away. Your pillow nudges the wall. The lamp trembles in its fixture, making the shadows move like slow water. You hear a muffled cough from another compartment, then the soft creak of springs as someone turns over. The whole car is full of people making small adjustments in darkness, each one trying to match a human body to steel motion. Arguments continue among historians over how much the remembered coziness of old sleeper trains comes from actual comfort and how much from distance, longing, and selective memory. The berths were narrow, the air could be stuffy, the plumbing was modest, yet memory keeps the warm lamp, the thick blanket, the snow on the window, and the steady wheels. Perhaps comfort is not the absence of inconvenience. Perhaps it is inconvenience made gentle enough to become beloved. A gust of wind strikes the carman and the cold at the window sharpens. You draw the curtain more tightly, and the room instantly feels smaller, warmer, more secret. The storm becomes sound rather than sight. That changes everything. Seen through glass, the blizzard is a spectacle. Heard behind curtains, it becomes a lullaby with poor social skills. It rattles, sighs, pushes, retreats, and returns. The train accepts the noise without drama. Your fingers find the edge of the blanket binding. It is smooth from use, slightly cooler than the wool centre. You trace it idly while the heat rises around you. There is something ancient in this simple arrangement, a body kept warm in winter while darkness moves outside. The train may be modern by old standards, with signals, dining service, steel cars, and a timetable, but the comfort itself is older than railroads, shelter, warmth, cloth, a safe place to close the eyes. The air grows heavier as the compartment warms. You turn the lamp lower, and the amber light shrinks into a dim pool. The room becomes less a room than a pocket. The pipe clicks again. The blanket presses gently. The wheels keep counting miles beneath you. Steady as a slow heartbeat. You breathe in warmth and faint dust. Breathe out the last brightness of wakefulness, and feel your thoughts loosen at the edges. For a while, you remain aware of everything. The distant whistle, the soft hiss in the wall, the rail joints, the storm, the thickness of wool, the coolness near the glass. Then these separate things begin to blend. Heat becomes sound, motion becomes weight, snow becomes darkness. The sleeper carries you through the blizzard with humble mechanical tenderness, and the old blanket, rough and dependable, holds you in place as if the whole winter night has agreed to let you rest. A low murmur rises somewhere beyond your curtain, not loud enough to disturb the night, but warm enough to remind you that the sleeper is carrying more than luggage and blankets. It is carrying lives in motion. You lie still and listen as voices drift through the narrow spaces of the car, softened by fabric, wood, carpet, snow. The train has become a long household of strangers, each person tucked into a private corner, yet joined by the same wheels underfoot. Across the corridor, a man speaks in the careful tone people use when trying not to wake anyone, which of course makes every word sound more important. He is telling someone about skis packed in the baggage car. They are wooden skis, long, polished, and slightly temperamental, the kind that require attention, wax, and perhaps a small prayer to the gods of balance. He says the mountain conditions should be fine if the storm leaves enough powder and not too much crust. His companion gives a sleepy answer that suggests great faith in breakfast. Winter sports helped draw travellers into the Adirondacks during the 20th century, and Lake Placid became internationally known when it hosted the Winter Olympics in 1932. Rail lines and connecting services played a role in bringing visitors toward the region, especially in seasons when mountain roads could become slow, icy, or closed. The train is not simply passing through winter recreation, it is part of the system that makes it possible. The skier continues, now describing boots that pinch, poles that bend, and a friend who once arrived at a lodge with only one glove and an expression of heroic betrayal. Someone laughs softly. The laugh is quickly covered, but not quickly enough. It travels down the corridor like a match flame in the dark. You smile into your pillow. There are few comforts greater than hearing strangers become less grand in their own stories. Farther down the car, another voice speaks of work. This one is older, flatter, steadier. A man mentions a hotel kitchen, deliveries delayed by snow, and the need to get fires started before guests wake wanting coffee as though coffee appears by moral right. He is travelling to a mountain town where the storm is not scenery. It is labour waiting at the door. Snow must be shovelled, steps salted, chimneys checked, wagons unloaded, pipes watched, and guests reassured that the view is charming even when the view has become a white wall. A curious tidbit from mountain resort life is that guests sometimes wrote glowing letters about the romance of deep snow, while workers spent the same storm hauling coal, beating ice from steps, and drying endless socks near backroom heat. The same blizzard could be a postcard for one person and a long shift for another. History has a funny habit of wearing a fur collar in the front parlour and wet boots in the service hall. In the next compartment, a child wakes and asks whether the mountains are there yet. The question is whispered with intense seriousness, as if mountains might be shy and require respectful inquiry. A woman answers that they are all around, though hidden by snow and night. The child considers this. Then comes the smaller question, where the mountains sleep. The woman pauses, and you can almost hear her choosing between truth and poetry. She says yes, in winter they do. That answer settles beautifully over the berth. Mountains sleep in winter. Perhaps that is not geology, strictly speaking, but not every true thing arrives wearing a laboratory coat. The child is quiet for a while, then asks whether the train sleeps too. The woman says the train works while everyone else sleeps. This, you think, is closer to history than she may realise. Historians differ on whether mid-century passenger trains created real social mixing or merely placed divided lives side by side for a little while. In one car, skiers, workers, families, salesmen, nurses, students, and solitary wanderers might share heat, food, stations, and weather. Yet tickets. Compartments, income, and custom still shaped who received ease and who provided it. The train gathers people together, but it does not erase the world that made them unequal. A young couple passes your door on their way back from the lounge, stepping carefully with the exaggerated balance of people determined not to look unsteady. They whisper about a cabin they've rented near a lake. The lake is probably frozen now, though they speak of it as if it will open for them personally by morning. They carry the sweet, foolish certainty of people at the beginning of a shared story. You wish them warm walls, patient plumbing, and a stove that does not behave like a moody relative. Another passenger tells a tale from the smoking section, his voice dry with practiced amusement. He once met a man who claimed he could identify every Adirondack station by the smell of the platform. Pine at one stop, coal smoke at another, lake damp at another, horse blanket at a fourth. This may be nonsense, Or it may be one of those strange talents the world refuses to document because it has no category for them. Either way, the listeners approve. The train sways through a curve, and the voices tilt with it. A sentence pauses, a cup clinks, someone steadies himself against the wall. The shared motion creates a temporary politeness. Everyone understands that pride is fragile on a moving floor. Even the most dignified traveller may be betrayed by a sudden lurch and forced to grab a curtain like a stage actor in distress. You hear a woman describe visiting her sister in a town where the general store keeps a potbelly stove near the counter. She says people gather there during storms to hear news, trade complaints, and pretend they only came in for flour. Another voice mentions a hunting camp. Another a school closed by snow. Another a doctor called out with a horse team years ago when roads were worse and telephones less reliable. Each story adds a window to the darkness. None of these voices tells the complete history of the mountains. No single birth can hold that. Yet together they make the journey larger than your own rest. The train is carrying play, duty, love, fatigue, memory, and expectation towards towns whose names sound different in every mouth. The blizzard outside presses them all into one warm line of travel. Gradually, the conversations fade. The skier stops defending his wax choices. The worker rests his voice. The child accepts that mountains sleep. The young couple closes their door. The corridor returns to its soft hush. But it is no longer empty. It is filled with the afterglow of human presence. The tender evidence that everyone aboard is heading towards something. You close your eyes again. The wheels continue beneath you, steady and low, around you. The fellow travellers settle into their berths, each wrapped in a private dream, while the train carries their separate hopes through one common storm. The lounge car glows ahead like a small island of wakefulness. You reach it by walking carefully through the swaying corridor, one hand brushing the wall, your balance improving with every step. The storm beats at the outer doors, but the train holds its warmth close. When you enter, the air changes at once. It smells of coffee grown tired but loyal. Wool coats drying over chair backs, paper ink, pipe smoke clinging to the corners, and the faint sweetness of oranges someone has peeled with great seriousness. The room is dimmer than the dining car, less formal, more forgiving. Lamps sit low under shaded glass, making the windows look almost black. Snow flashes against them in the brief pale streaks, and, every now and then, a signal lamp passes, colouring the glass for a heartbeat. The seats are arranged for lingering, not for eating, not for sleeping, but for that middle state in which people pretend they are not sleepy while clearly preparing to lose the argument. Lounge cars became an important part of many long-distance passenger trains, giving travellers a shared place to read, smoke, play cards, talk quietly, or simply watch the landscape without staying confined to a berth. Some trains offered observation lounges with wide windows, while others provided more modest cars with chairs, tables, and a sense of relaxed company. Either way, the purpose was clear. A journey needed more than movement. It needed a room for passing time. You choose a chair near the window, its upholstery slightly worn at the arms, the cushion size beneath you. A small table holds newspapers folded in uneven stacks, and the headlines seem both urgent and strangely distant. Politic, prices, weather, sports, strikes, new products, old worries. The world has placed its troubles in black ink, but the train has softened them. News feels different at midnight in a snowstorm. It may be important, certainly, but it is not getting through that window tonight. A man at the next table is playing solitaire with the grave attention of a judge. He turns each card as if the future of rail travel depends on it. Nearby, two passengers play a quiet game together, placing cards with controlled taps. The train sways, and a card slides sideways. One player catches it with a finger and murmurs that even the deck is trying to head north. The joke is small. The laugh it earns is smaller. But in the lounge car, small jokes are perfect. They do not wake anyone. A curious little custom from older train travel is that strangers sometimes formed card tables for only a single night, learned one another's habits, complained about one another's luck, then parted at dawn without exchanging addresses. For a few hours, they became close enough to accuse each other of suspicious good fortune, which is one of the gentler forms of human friendship. By morning, the alliance dissolved into steam, snow, and platform footsteps. You pick up a newspaper and smooth it on your knee. The paper crackles loudly in the quiet, and you freeze for a second as if you have committed a crime. No one objects. One passenger barely lifts an eyebrow, which is perhaps worse, but survivable. You read a few lines, then find your attention drifting from the words to the room itself. The slow nod of a drowsy traveller, the shine on a coffee cup, the lamps reflected in the glass, the shadow of your own hand moving across the page. The lounge car has its own rhythm, different from the berth and different from the dining room. Here, people resist sleep together. A woman writes in a small notebook, pausing often to listen to the storm. A salesman in a loosened tie studies his order book. Though his pencil has not moved for several minutes, an older couple shares an orange, passing sections back and forth without speaking. The peel curls on a napkin like a little piece of sunset smuggled into winter. Historians continue to argue about whether such shared railway spaces truly created community or simply offered a pleasant illusion of it. The lounge made strangers visible to one another, and for a little while they shared lamps, ashtrays, weather, cards, and jokes. Yet many barriers remained, shaped by ticket cost, custom, race, class, and the rules of the era. The car invites warmth, but the wider world still rides along in every pocket and silence. A porter passes through with practiced quiet, collecting used cups and answering a question about morning arrival. He does not sit, though he has surely earned it. He moves through the glow and out again, leaving behind a sense of order restored. The card players lower their voices. The man with the solitaire deck finally wins, or decides he has won, which at this hour may be the same thing. He gathers the cards with satisfaction and looks around to see if history has noticed. The blizzard continues to write itself across the windows. Sometimes the glass shows only your reflection, layered with lamps and shadows. Sometimes, when the train rounds a curve, you glimpse snow-covered pines standing close to the track, their branches bent like old shoulders. Then darkness returns. The lounge becomes timeless, not because time has stopped, but because it has become soft around the edges. The clock still moves, but politely. You rest the newspaper on the table and lean back. A yawn passes through this car almost visibly. One traveller yawns, then another. Then someone tries to hide it behind a cup and fails with dignity. The jokes grow slower. The cards are boxed. The notebook closes. Chairs creak as people rise to return to their berths, carrying the lounge glow with them like a little borrowed warmth. You remain a moment longer, listening to the wheels and the storm blend into one deep hush. The lamps seem lower now. The air is thicker, gentler. The lounge car, with its pen, cards, sleepy wit, and shared silence, has given the night a human centre. Outside, the mountains stand unseen under snow. Inside, the last wakeful passengers surrender, one by one, to the mercy of the rails. The train reaches water before you see it. You feel the approach first in the sound beneath the wheels, a slight hollowing of the rhythm, a widening of the night under the rails. The steady beat changes as the track rises onto a bridge, and suddenly the sleeper seems to float. The window darkens, the trees fall away. Snow sweeps across an open space, and below, hidden under the storm, a frozen river waits in silence. You lift the curtain and look down into a world of black water, white ice and drifting snow. The bridge beams flash past in strong vertical lines. briefly slicing the view into pieces. Between them you glimpse the river surface, not smooth, not simple, but patched with ice shelves, dark seams, pale ridges, and places where current still moves under a skin of winter. The train crosses above it with a deep metallic thunder, softened by snow but still grand enough to make your blanket feel like a front row seat. The Adirondack region is crossed by many rivers and streams, including waters that flow toward the Hudson River, Lake Champlain, and the St. Lawrence Basin. Rail lines serving northern New York often needed bridges, culverts, embankments, and careful grading to move through this rugged, wet, forested landscape. The journey across a mountain river is not an accident of scenery. It is the result of surveying, engineering, labour, and a great deal of confidence placed in steel. The bridge continues beneath you. The sound changes again as each wheel meets the rail joints over the span. There is a ringing quality now, a hollow iron music. It rises through the floor and into the berth, not harsh but powerful. You imagine the river listening from below, unimpressed by human noise. Rivers have heard storms, spring floods, axes, mills, boots, paddles, animal steps, and the crack of ice in the cold. A passing train is dramatic, certainly, but rivers are difficult to astonish. A strange old piece of winter lore says that frozen rivers sometimes boom, groan, or sing when ice shifts under changing temperature. People sleeping near them have mistaken the sound for distant guns, falling trees, or some enormous creature clearing its throat. It's not a monster, which is disappointing for storytelling, but better for public safety. It is only ice moving, expanding, splitting and settling. Only ice. As if ice were not mysterious enough already. The train leaves the bridge, and trees gather close again. Yet the presence of water remains in your mind. You sense it beside the track, hidden under drifts, following the valley floor. The wheels run along an embankment where the land drops away on one side. Snow swirls upward from the frozen riverbed, catching the train light and vanishing. Here and there, the river shows itself as a dark curve between white banks, then slips back under trees. You think of the men who built these crossings, measuring distances in weather that could turn tools stiff in the hand. You imagine survey crews pushing through wet ground in warmer months, marking lines through brush. Then work crews returning with timber, stone, iron, and resolve. A bridge looks still when you cross it. That is part of its success. It hides the argument it has won against water, gravity, ice, and time. Engineers and historians still debate how best to judge the environmental cost of railroad expansion through mountain and forest regions. Some emphasize connection, trade, travel, and the opening of remote towns to supplies and visitors. Others focus on disrupted habitats, easier logging access, altered waterways, and the long reach of industry into places later celebrated as wild. The bridge beneath your train is both achievement and intrusion. It carries comfort, but it also marks a claim. Another crossing comes sooner than expected. This one is smaller, perhaps a creek or the narrow river channel, but the sound is sharper. The train taps over it, quick and bright, and for one moment your window fills with pale ice packed around dark stones. The water below appears in slivers, black and restless. Snow lies on rocks like folded linen. A branch leans over the stream, glazed white, its tips touching the current as if testing whether winter has finished its work. The sleeper car sways back into steady motion. Your compartment feels warmer after the open crossing, although nothing inside has changed. That is one of the quiet tricks of travel. A glimpse of cold makes warmth newly visible. The lamp seems kinder. The blanket seems wiser. Even the little shelf beside your berth, holding your watch and folded paper, looks more loyal. Outside, the rivers keep their cold counsel beneath the snow. You pass low wetlands where frozen pools shine faintly through the storm. Cattails stand stiff and dark, their heads capped with white. A few animal tracks cross an open patch before disappearing under fresh snow. The train does not pause to read them. It has its own tracks to follow, fixed and shining under the blizzard, still that you wonder what passed there before you. A fox, perhaps, or a hare, or some night creature with business more urgent than romance and less interested in timetables. The river returns once more, wider now, visible through gaps in the trees. The train runs beside it rather than over it, and the two movements seem to keep company. Steel wheels forward, black current beneath ice forward, snow across both, for a while. You and the river travel together through the hidden valley. The train is loud, warm, and lit. The river is dark, cold, and nearly silent, yet both are going somewhere. You settle deeper into the berth as the water slips away behind the trees. The bridge thunder fades into memory, replaced by the lower murmur of rails on earth. Still, the image remains clear. Dark water under ice, snow crossing the open span, iron beams flashing past the window. A train carrying sleepers above a frozen river in the middle of a mountain blizzard. It feels ancient and modern at once, like a dream built from steel, winter, and trust. The climb begins so gradually that you notice it through feeling rather than sight. The train does not announce the grade with a dramatic groan. It simply changes its breathing. The wheels keep turning, but the rhythm grows heavier, more deliberate, as if the whole length of the train has leaned forward into a task that requires patience. Your berth tilts with the curve, and the blanket slides a fraction toward your knees before settling again. Outside, the blizzard thickens against the slope. The trees stand closer now, rising in dark ranks along the track, their branches bowed under snow. The window shows steep banks, sudden rock cuts, and flashes of white ground climbing away into blackness. The train is no longer gliding through open country. It is working upward through winter, and every warm compartment behind the engine depends on that steady pull. The locomotive labours somewhere ahead, unseen but deeply present. You feel its effort through the couplers as a subtle tightening, a long physical force or thought passing from car to car. The floor trembles with a lower vibration. A cup on the wash basin shelf gives a tiny rattle. Somewhere in the corridor, a latch knocks once and stops. The whole sleeper seems to listen to the grade, not frightened, only attentive. Railroads have long used sand to improve wheel grip on slippery rails, with locomotives carrying sand that can be dropped in front of the driving wheels when needed. On a snowy mountain grade, steel wheels on steel rails need help from such plain, gritty wisdom. It is not elegant. It is not glamorous. It is sand, the humble hero of traction, quietly saving the evening from becoming a very slow and embarrassing lesson in physics. The train slows further. The change is gentle, but your body recognizes it. The rail joints pass beneath you with more space between their sounds. The storm, by contrast, seems louder, as if speed had been holding it at a distance. Now the wind presses close to the car, scraping along the walls and throwing snow hard against the glass. The window becomes a blur of white scratches and dark trunks. The mountains feel awake now, or at least mildly inconvenienced. A strange old bit of railroad superstition claimed that a train climbing in bad weather should not be praised aloud until it reached easier track. Praise was thought to tempt delay, as if machinery, snow, and fate might be listening for arrogance. Sensible people may dismiss this. Sensible people also sometimes whisper encouragement to elevators, automobiles, and stubborn kettles. You find yourself silently telling the train that it is doing very well, but not too loudly, just in case. The berth rocks through a sharper curve. You hear brakes breathe, then release. The motion steadies. Perhaps the crew is managing the grade, the signals, the snow, and the safe spacing of trains ahead. Perhaps a drift has gathered near a cut. Perhaps the rails are slick where wind has swept powder across them. From your compartment, uncertainty has a soft shape. It arrives as altered rhythm, a longer whistle, a pause in the wheels, a hush in the corridor. Passengers begin to sense the strain. A door slides open. A voice asks a careful question in the hall. Another answers with confidence that may or may not be earned. Someone jokes that the mountains are charging admission by the foot. The laugh that follows is quiet, sleepy, and grateful. In a storm, even a small joke is a lantern. It does not change the weather, but it lets people see one another for a moment. Railway historians still dispute whether mountain routes should be celebrated mainly as feats of engineering, or examined as costly struggles against difficult land. Harsh weather and long-term maintenance. A grade carved through forest can look heroic from a train window. It can also represent years of blastings, filling, drainage work, bridge upkeep, snow clearance, and human exposure to danger. The line is beautiful because it was difficult, not because difficulty politely stepped aside. The train seems to hesitate near a lonely siding. Your ears catch the faint squeal of metal, a sound stretched thin by cold. Outside, a signal glows red through the snow, then shifts beyond your angle of view. The train waits, or nearly waits. Motion becomes so slow that the storm appears to move faster than the world itself. Snow runs past the glass in wild white sheets, while the sleeper creeps forward one measured breath at a time. You sit up slightly, not alarmed, but awake in a deepened way. The lamp is low, or the blanket is warm. The compartment remains orderly, yet the night has acquired a sharper edge. Comfort feels more precious when the train must earn every yard. The old machinery, the crew, the rails under snow, the unseen signals, the workers somewhere in the dark, all have become part of your blanket, part of your pillow, part of the warmth around your shoulders. Then the pull strengthens. It is not sudden enough to startle you. It is steady, gathering from the engine through the train like a decision. The wheels grip, the cars answer, the couplers tighten in sequence with soft, distant knocks. The grade continues, but the train has found its pace again. Your body eases back before your mind does. The sound below grows smoother, though still powerful. The blizzard remains furious, which is very committed of it, but the train has resumed its patient argument with the mountain. The forest passes in dark waves. Snow rises from the trackside in clouds, bright where it catches the compartment light, then gone. Rock walls close in, their faces glazed with ice. Small frozen streams hang in pale ribbons from ledges beside the line. The train threads between them, not triumphant, not defeated, simply persistent. That persistence feels older than the timetable. It feels like work done well in difficult weather, which may be one of the quietest forms of grandeur. At last, the grade softens. You know it from the sound before you know it from the view. The wheels regain an easier song. The engine no longer sends that strong pull through the cars. The berth settles into a gentler sway, and the corridor returns to sleep. Outside, the storm keeps sweeping across the hidden slopes, but the hardest part of the climb has loosened its grip. You lie back beneath the wool and let the tension leave your hands. The train has climbed through the night without ceremony. No applause rises in the compartments. No one gives a speech. The passengers simply breathe more deeply, and the wheels continue into the snowbound mountains, carrying their warm secret of effort onward. The first hint of dawn does not arrive as light. It arrives as a thinning of darkness, a faint change in the window, a softening at the edges of the storm. You wake without knowing why. No bell has sounded, no one has knocked. The train has not stopped. Yet something in the night has loosened, and your body hears it before your eyes understand. For a while, you lie still beneath the wool blanket, letting the berth carry you. The lamp is turned low, only a small amber bead beside the wall. The compartment is warm, but cooler than it was in the deepest hours, as if the train itself has grown drowsy. The air smells of cloth, metal heat, and the pale dryness that comes near morning, when even old smoke and coffee seem to have gone to sleep. Outside, the blizzard has lost some of its anger. Snow still falls, but the wind no longer throws it against the glass with the same sharp hand. The flakes drift more slowly now, crossing the faint grey window in patient layers. The world beyond remains hidden, but no longer erased. Shapes begin to return: a tree line, a slope, a telegraph pole, a snowbank rising beside the track like a white wall built by very tired giants. Northern railroads prepared for winter travel with ploughs, inspection crews, signal maintenance, heated equipment, and revised operating caution during severe weather. Passenger comfort depended on far more than the sleeper car alone. It depended on a wide chain of people who kept track clear, switches moving, stations open, and information flowing. In the half-light, that fact feels almost tender. You're not simply waking in a berth. You're waking inside a great system that has worked through darkness on your behalf. The train moves at a measured pace, not hurried, not strained. The wheels sound softer over the snow-covered land, as if morning has placed felt beneath the rails, somewhere far ahead. The whistle calls once. The note is low and blurred by distance. It does not startle you. It seems to belong to the grey air, to the pines, to the slow return of the visible world. A curious belief among some frequent winter travellers held that the hour before sunrise was the safest and strangest time on a train, because everyone was too tired to worry and too near morning to dream properly. This is not a scientific category, or, of course, no, though it has a certain sleepy accuracy. Thoughts at this hour arrive wearing slippers. They do not hurry. They sit at the edge of the mind and watch snow fall. You turn onto your back and listen to the sleeping car. It has entered that rare hush when nearly all passengers are quiet at once. No corridor talk, no card game laughter, no dining car clatter. Only a few small sounds remain. A pipe ticks, a curtain stirs, a berth spring sighs as someone far away shifts under a blanket. The train itself becomes the main voice, and even that voice seems lowered out of respect for dawn. The window grows lighter by degrees, the black outside becomes charcoal, then pearl grey. Snow clings to the outer ledge in a thick white line. Frost feathers the lower corner of the glass, making delicate patterns that look too careful to be accidental. You lean closer and see branching shapes, tiny forests within the frost, as if winter has signed its name in miniature. Writers still differ on whether the great power of night trains lies in travel itself or in the strange inwardness they create. One view praises speed, distance, and engineering. Another listens more closely to the half-awake passenger, the mind loosened by the rhythm, the memory made softer by the dark windows and shared silence. At this hour, the debate feels easy to settle and impossible to settle. The train is taking you somewhere, yes, but it is also taking you inward. A pale clearing opens beside the track. You see low brush bent under snow and a frozen pond whose surface has disappeared beneath a smooth white cover. At its edge, reeds stand like thin, brown stitches. The train passes quietly, and the pond is gone. Then comes forest again, close and still. The pines hold snow on every branch, layer upon layer, until they look less like trees than silent figures wrapped for some ancient ceremony. Your thoughts move slowly through the people aboard. The child who asked whether mountain sleep is probably curled under a blanket now. The workers heading to mountain towns may wake with practical lists already forming. The skiers may dream of slopes softened by fresh powder. The porter, if he is rested at all, will soon begin the morning round with towels, shoes, questions, and the steady face of service. The train carries all of this toward daylight without asking anyone to explain themselves. The sky brightens behind the storm. No sunrise appears, not in any golden postcard way. There is only a gradual lifting, a quiet unveiling. The snow outside becomes visible as snow, not merely motion. The land takes back its shapes. A fence line runs beside the track. A small shed sits half buried. Smoke rises from a chimney in the distance, thin and vertical until wind folds it sideways. You sit up and draw the blanket around your shoulders. The compartment feels like a room that has protected a secret all night. Your shoes wait below. Your folded papers rest on the shelf. The wash basin cover gleams faintly. Nothing has changed much, and yet everything feels newly touched by morning. That is the gift of travel through darkness. You wake in the same body, but the world outside has moved, and some quieter part of you has moved with it. The train rolls onward through the pale hour. The storm is no longer a battle. It has become a veil, soft curtain between night and day. You breathe slowly, listening to the rails, feeling warmth gather again under the blanket. The mountains remain hushed. The sky lightens, and the sleeper carries you through the tender stillness before sunrise, when even steel seems capable of whispering. For a moment, it feels as though the whole train is holding its breath while the mountains slowly reveal themselves. The window is no longer a dark mirror. It has become a pale sheet of morning, brushed with snow, pine, roof lines, and the first hints of human settlement. You sit wrapped in the blanket, watching the world gather in a detail, one quiet shape at a time. The storm still moves, but it has softened into steady falling. Snow descends in thick, sleepy flakes that drift rather than attack. The wind has stepped back from its midnight performance, perhaps tired from all that unnecessary drama. Outside, snowbanks rise along the track as high, rounded walls, their surfaces blue in the early light. The train runs between them like a warm needle drawn through folded linen. Then you see smoke. It rises from a chimney beyond the trees, thin and grey, bending gently in the cold air. A house appears, then another, half hidden behind spruce branches. Their roofs are loaded with snow. Their windows glow faintly, amber against the white morning. Someone inside is likely tending a stove, setting water to boil, pulling on heavy socks, or staring at the same storm with the private expression of a person who owns a shovel. Winter romance has always been easier from a sleeper berth. The track curves, and a small mountain town begins to assemble itself outside your window. A shed, a crossing sign, a line of telegraph poles, a church steeple made soft by snow, a storefront with steps nearly buried. The train slows as if entering a room where people are still sleeping. Wheels click more gently, brakes sigh in careful breaths. The cars glide past backyards where wood piles sit under white caps and laundry lines hang empty between posts. Rail service helped connect Adirondack communities to larger cities, carrying visitors, mail, supplies, workers, and patients to towns such as Saranac Lake and Lake Placid during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. These mountain places were not only vacation scenes, they were working communities, health destinations, winter sports centres, and year-round homes. The railway made them easier to reach, especially when snow turned roads into a test of nerve, machinery, and vocabulary best kept private. The closer you come to the peaks, the less they resemble a single grand picture. They appear in layers, half seen through storm and low cloud. A dark shoulder of forest rises beyond the roofs. Behind it, another slope lifts higher, blurred by snow, Farther still, a pale ridge seems to float in the morning air, not quite sky and not quite earth. The Adirondacks do not leap into view. They arrive with restraint, as if grandeur prefers not to rush. A curious mountain tidbit says that visitors often judged winter cold by chimney smoke. If smoke climbed straight upward, the air was still and bitter. If it flattened and hurried sideways, wind was waiting with opinions. People became weather readers because they had to be. A barometer might be useful, certainly, but a chimney, a doorstep, a horse's breath, and the sound of snow under boots could also deliver a forecast with rustic confidence. The train passes a small yard where men in heavy coats stand near a freight platform. Their hats and shoulders are powdered white. One raises a hand toward the passenger cars, and the gesture travels across the morning like a quiet blessing. Crates sit stacked under canvas. Barrels stand beside the wall. A cart waits with its shafts lifted, snow gathering in the empty space where work will soon begin. The day is not waiting for better weather, it is simply beginning. You notice the station signs now, darker boards rimmed with snow, their letters briefly readable as the train crawls past. Some passengers stir, doors slide open, voices return to the corridor, softer than usual, roughened by sleep. Someone asks whether this is the stop. Someone else says not yet. A suitcase thumps. A child coughs. The porter moves calmly through the car, answering questions with that even tone that makes uncertainty feel less troublesome. Academic opinions diverge on how railroads changed Adirondack towns. Some writers emphasize opportunity, tourism, medical travel, and dependable supply lines. Others point to pressure from development, increased extraction of forest resources, and the way outside visitors reshaped local economies and expectations. From your window, the question does not resolve itself neatly. You see smoke, work, snow, beauty, and need all occupying the same morning street. The train gathers a little speed again beyond the town. Houses fall away, replaced by pines standing close against the track. Between them, the mountains show more clearly. Their slopes are heavy with snow and shadow. The peaks do not look sharp today. They look muffled, patient, ancient in mood if not in comparison with the oldest ranges of the world. The storm has wrapped them in quiet, turning every ridge into a softer version of itself. You press your palm lightly to the window frame, feeling the cold stored in the metal. Inside the compartment, the heater continues its humble work. Outside, a road crosses the track and disappears under white drifts. A single automobile sits near a ploughed bank, its roof piled with snow, its shape made almost comic by winter's effort to turn it into a loaf of bread. The train passes with dignity, which is easy when someone else has cleared your path. Another town approaches, smaller than the first, a cluster of roofs, a schoolhouse perhaps, a general store with a porch sagging under snow. A dog stands near a fence, watching the train with deep professional suspicion. It barks once, though the sound is lost behind glass and wheels. The dog is probably correct to distrust large moving houses full of strangers. Still, you admire its dedication. The peaks rise beyond the town in broken glimpses. Now a wooded ridge, now a white opening where a slope descends, now a darker summit hidden by passing cloud. The Adirondacks are not presenting themselves like scenery painted for applause. They are simply there, immense and layered, receiving the morning without concern for passengers, tickets, postcard, or sleepy awe. That indifference makes them more beautiful, not less. The train rolls onward through the brightening snow, nearing the places where travellers will step down, where trunks will be lifted, where hotel fires will be stirred, where roads will be questioned, where greetings will bloom in frosty air. You remain by the window a little longer, watching chimneys, snowbanks, pines, and ridges gather into one slow arrival. The night journey has become morning in the mountains, and the world outside opens carefully, like a letter written in white. The train eases into the station with the careful pride of a traveller who has crossed a storm and would prefer not to boast. The wheels slow beneath you, their long rhythm breaking into softer clicks, then shorter ones, then a final whisper of metal against metal. Brakes breathe along the cars in a deep, tired sigh. Outside, the platform slides into view, white with fresh snow and edged by lamps still glowing in the pale morning. You sit for a moment before rising. The berth has held you through the night, and leaving it feels oddly personal, as if you owe the narrow bed a word of thanks. The blanket lies rumpled but faithful. The lamp is still warm. Your suitcase waits near the door, squared and patient, though it seems slightly heavier than when the journey began. That is how luggage behaves at arrivals. It absorbs sleep, weather, and all the thoughts you did not unpack. In the corridor, passengers move with quiet purpose, or coats are buttoned, hats are pulled low, gloves are searched for, found, lost again, then discovered in the obvious pocket, which is always humiliating but traditional. The porter passes with a calm nod, helping one passenger with a strap, another with a bag, another with a question about ground transport. His work does not end when the wheels stop. The train may arrive, but service has its own final miles. Rail stations in mountain towns often served as more than simple boarding places. They handled passengers, baggage, mail, express parcels, local news, hotel connections, and supplies that tied remote communities to wider trade and travel networks. In deep winter, a station could feel like the hinge between two worlds, the warm moving world of the train and the snowbound world of roads, porches, chimneys, and waiting hands. You step down from the car, and cold air meets you with immediate honesty. It touches your face, slips under your collar, and clears the last softness of sleep from your eyes. The platform boards are packed with snow where boots have crossed them, and the edges are piled high from hurried shoveling. The air smells of coal smoke, pine, wet wool, cold iron, and something faintly sweet from the station stove inside. The station building stands low and sturdy under its white roof. Frost rims the windows, a sign hangs above the platform, its letters dark against snow. People gather beneath it in small clusters, speaking in morning voices. Some are being met, some are looking for porters, drivers, cousins, hotel clerks, or anyone with a sleigh, truck, or automobile willing to challenge the drifts. A reunion unfolds near the baggage cart, muffled by scarves and thick coats. No one runs. Snow makes even happiness move carefully. A curious station custom was the use of baggage checks and paper claim tags that turned trunks and suitcases into numbered mysteries. Travellers trusted that the correct bag would emerge from the baggage room or cart, even when half the luggage looked alike, dark, square, and sternly respectable. More than one person must have stared at a stranger's suitcase with deep suspicion, wondering whether their own socks had chosen a new life elsewhere. You watch trunks come down from the baggage car, each one thudding onto the platform with snowy finality. A railway man calls names and destinations. A hotel driver stamps his boots and lifts a mittened hand. A woman adjusts the scarf of a child who would clearly rather become part of the snowbank than submit to clothing management. A man in a heavy overcoat consults a folded paper, frowns at the sky, and then frowns at the road, as if both have disappointed him personally. The train rests beside the platform, its windows glowing faintly, its sides streaked with snow and ice. Icicles hang from metal steps. Snow clings to the undercarriage in rough white patches. Up close, the sleeper looks less like a romantic symbol and more like a hard-working object that has spent the night being shoved through weather. That makes it more beautiful. Polished comfort is pleasant, but earned comfort has depth. Researchers continue to debate whether railroad arrivals in regions like the Adirondacks brought small communities healthy connection or made them increasingly dependent on outside visitors and distant markets. A station meant opportunity, mail, guests, goods, and news. It also meant seasonal pressure, shifting prices, changing land use, and expectations carried in by travellers who loved the mountains most when someone else handled the difficult parts. The platform beneath your feet holds both welcome and complication. You follow the flow toward the station door. Inside, the waiting room is warmer, though not warm enough to make anyone careless. A stove stands near the wall, iron black and glowing with contained patience. Benches line the room, posters advertise winter hotels, clean air, skiing, and cheerful landscapes with weather far better behaved than the morning outside. A clock ticks over the ticket window. Its sound is plain and steady, bringing the world back to ordinary time. People remove gloves to sign papers, count coins, read notes, and shake hands. The station agent works behind the window, answering questions with a face that suggests he has answered these same questions in every storm since the invention of snow. Yes, the road is open, or partly open. Yes, a driver has been sent. No, the parcel has not vanished. Yes, the train came through despite the night. Calm facts, offered like kindling. You step back outside for one more look at the cars. Steam or warm vapour drifts along the platform and folds around the wheels. The locomotive waits ahead, dark and powerful, its headlight dimmed by daylight and snow. Men move near it with practiced ease, inspecting and speaking briefly, doing the necessary things that passengers rarely understand but deeply benefit from. The storm has softened, yet the work continues. A quiet feeling settles over you. Not sadness exactly, I don't know. More like the hush that follows a song when the last note has faded, but the room still remembers it. The night train has carried you out of darkness, through snow, over rivers, past signals, into mountains, and now into the cold clarity of morning. The journey has ended in the simplest way, with boots on a platform, breath in the air, and voices turning toward the day. You lift your suitcase and feel its weight settle into your hand. The platform creaks underfoot. Snow continues to fall, softer now, patient and bright. Behind you, the sleeper car waits for its next duty. Ahead, the mountain town opens slowly through the white morning and you step forward into it, carrying the warmth of the train like a hidden ember. The morning town receives you with quiet courtesy, but the train remains in your senses, even as you stand under the station eaves, even as snow gathers on your shoulders. You still feel the motion of the berth beneath your ribs. The body is loyal to rhythm. It keeps the rails for a while, carrying them in the knees, in the balance, in the soft sway that follows you onto firm ground. You are still moving, though your boots are still. The sleeper car rests beside the platform. Windows dim in the grey morning. Frost rims the glass, and the metal sides are streaked with night travel. It looks less like an object now, and more like a memory that has not yet decided to leave. You see the curtains, the brass handles, the steps crusted with snow, the faint warmth escaping whenever a door opens. Inside, blankets are being folded, berths restored, cups gathered, curtains drawn back. A night of small private worlds is being turned into a car again. Mid-century passenger trains carried not only travellers but also a particular idea of distance, one shaped by timetables, sleeping cars, dining service, stations, and the steady faith that a night could be crossed while you rested. By 1956, that idea was already under pressure from highways and airplanes, yet it had not vanished. It still had lamps, porters, menus, postcards, and wool blankets. It still had the power to make miles feel like a story. Snow falls without hurry. The flakes settle on baggage carts, platform lamps, hat brims, and the dark shoulders of waiting passengers. A driver calls a family name. A hotel clerk checks a list. Somewhere, A station door opens and releases the smell of stove heat, paper, and wet boots. The town is awake now, but gently. Morning in deep snow does not rush, it negotiates. You look toward the mountains. Though clouds hide their highest ridges, they are there in the whiteness, lifting behind the roofs and pines, silent as closed books. The journey has not made them familiar, it has made them more present. The night train has brought you close enough to understand that mountains are not decorations on the horizon. They are weather makers, road breakers, water holders, work givers, dream keepers, and patient witnesses to human arrivals that feel grand only to humans. A curious footnote from old rail travel is that some people kept train tickets, menus, and baggage tags for decades, tucked into books or drawers, not because the paper had value, but because the journey had given the paper a pulse. A ticket stub might outlive the suitcase, the hotel, even the railroad name printed on it. Strange, is it not? How memory chooses its vessels. A scrap of card can become a whole night of snow. The locomotive gives a quiet release of vapour, and the sound drifts across the platform like a sigh. Men move along the cars, checking steps and couplings, doing practical things with practiced hands. The train that felt almost dreamlike in darkness is, in daylight, a machine being cared for. That does not diminish it. Dreams need bolts. Romance needs schedules. Warmth needs pipes. A cosy journey, when examined closely, is mostly skilled labour wearing a soft lamp. Analysts still disagree on how to measure the legacy of American sleeper trains. Some describe them as lost elegance, a gentler age of travel when people dressed for supper and watched the country pass from warm windows. Others remind us that such elegance depended on unequal service, high costs, aging equipment, and social rules that were not gentle to everyone. The truth is not a single polished rail. It is two rails running together, beauty and burden, comfort and cost. You carry that truth quietly. The night has not asked you to choose only romance or only critique. It has allowed both to sit beside you, like passengers sharing a table. You can love the amber lamp and still honour the tired hands that kept it shining. You can remember the warm berth and still notice the cold platform worker. You can cherish the dining car without forgetting the kitchen behind the swinging door. Memory becomes kinder when it becomes honest. The town road waits beyond the station, buried in fresh snow. A few vehicles stand near the curb, their windows cleared by mittened hands. Horses still appear in some winter corners of mountain life, and trucks in others, each leaving different tracks in the same white street. A bell rings once from somewhere unseen. The sound crosses the morning slowly and fades among the pines. You take one last look at the sleeper car. For a moment, the window gives back a faint reflection of your face, pale in winter light. Behind that reflection, you can almost see the berth lamp, the curtain, the storm flying sideways, the paper timetable trembling on your knees, the long rhythm that made thoughts soft and sleep possible. Then the reflection shifts, and the glass shows only frost. The train will move again. It will be cleaned, checked, warmed, boarded, and trusted. People will bring bags, worries, letters, sandwiches, books, jokes, and servants. Snow will fall or rain will shine on the window. Stations will call out their names. Porters and conductors will answer questions. Wheels will turn, and distance will once again be gathered into rhythm. That is the old enchantment of rail travel. It turns separation into passage. Now the morning opens around you. The blizzard has spent its fiercest voice. Leaving the world padded and bright, you step away from the platform with the warm memory of steel beneath sleep, of lamps glowing against snow, of a narrow berth carrying you through mountain dark. The train remains behind you, but its rhythm lingers, slow and steady, as if it has placed a small rail line inside the heart. And as this snowy journey grows quiet, let yourself rest inside that image for a little longer. A warm train, a white mountain morning, a window softly clouded with frost, and your own breathing calm beneath the blanket of memory. If this story carried you gently, as in share in the comments what moment stayed with you most. Was it the dining car glow, the storm on the glass, the quiet porter, or the first sight of the mountain town? Tell us where you are listening from, and let your little note become part of this peaceful platform. You can also wander into the next video on the channel, where another night, another road, and another hidden world are waiting in a soft voice. May your room feel warmer now, may your thoughts grow slower, and may sleep arrive like snow falling on silent rails. Blessings to you and your family.